It's really weird talking about Final Fantasy VII like it's just another video game, rather than one of the most culturally significant and popular games ever made. But in fairness, that pop culture importance is where a lot of my interest in Final Fantasy VII comes from. I think it's fair to say, though I expect not everyone will agree with me on this, that the PlayStation 1 was a bit of a golden era for JRPGs, and that JRPGs from this era don't typically hold up super great today. There was a huge emphasis on flashy cinematics that simply don't impress anymore, which leads to all sorts of pacing weirdness. We were leaning on random encounters again when games of the previous era were already trying to move past them. Memory restrictions were limiting scope and forcing games to live on multiple discs. Art styles were forced to change as we moved away from pixel art to varying degrees of success. And despite every single one of these pitfalls, many of which Final Fantasy VII falls into, it remained relevant and renowned long after many of its fellow PS1 JRPGs fell into obscurity. Perhaps more than anything, I love how quickly the story moves, a real rarity for its time. It plays with a lot of interesting ideas and themes, but doesn't linger on them, so in the moments where the writing and story presentation doesn't match modern standards, it's okay, because it just hands you the idea and gets on with itself. In other contexts, that could feel like a lack of proper exploration of its ideas, but in the context of an older game like this, it just feels like your time isn't being wasted, and I really appreciate that. I also think it's not properly appreciated how goofy this game is, with so many random, barely functional minigames thrown at you, another staple of the era, that luckily relish in their absurdity and don't actually demand much from you as a player in the way of precision or skill. It's hard to deny the likability of many of the characters, as well with the combat that is completely serviceable by modern standards. I love playing Final Fantasy VII and imagining being a kid in the late 90s when this was the absolute pinnacle of narrative in gaming, yet wasn't the absolute pop culture zeitgeist it is now. Back when people thought this was just their little special group of friends that they got to hang out with on their PS1. That is my favorite context to enjoy Final Fantasy VII in. The game absolutely earns being the king of its era, and that historical value will probably never cease to captivate me while I'm playing it. And luckily, the excellent modern support this game has seen over the years has granted it some essential quality of life features that I know for a fact played a part in this game getting as high on the list as it did.